Welcome to our 2026 guide to top React interview questions for senior developers. We will walk through 30 essential questions, focusing on the concepts, best practices, and real-world scenarios that define professional React expertise. This video follows a structured roadmap, covering everything from the core React architecture and state management to performance optimization, advanced patterns, and production-level scaling strategies. Our first question: what is React and why is it popular? React is a declarative library for component-based UIs. It is widely favored for its efficient virtual DOM, reusable components that boost team velocity, and a robust ecosystem. Question 2. How does the virtual DOM and reconciliation work? React creates a lightweight tree representation. When state changes, it diffs the old and new trees and applies only the minimal necessary DOM updates. Keys are critical here for identifying list items. Third, what is the difference between class and function components? Function components are simpler and standard in modern React. While classes use lifecycle methods in this binding, hooks now enable that same logic within functional components. Next, what are React hooks and why were they introduced? Hooks allow functional components to use state and side effects, solving logic duplication and readability issues often found in class-based components. Question 5. How do useState and useReducer differ? Use useState for simple local state. Choose useReducer for complex transitions, where state updates are dependent on previous values or multiple distinct actions. Moving on to useEffect. What is its purpose, and what are the common pitfalls? It handles side effects after rendering. Remember to correctly manage the dependency array to avoid stale closures, and always use cleanup functions to prevent leaks. 7th, how does useMemo differ from useCallback? UseMemo is for memoizing computed values, while useCallback memoizes function references. Use them sparingly, based on profiling evidence, to avoid unnecessary overhead. Question 8. What is React Context and when should you avoid overusing it? Context provides a way to share data through deep trees without prop drilling. It is great for global settings like themes, but avoid using it as a total state management replacement. Next, how do controlled and uncontrolled components differ in forms? Controlled components store state directly in React, offering better validation control. Uncontrolled components use DOM refs, which can be simpler for very basic form setups. Question 10. What are React keys, and why are they important? Keys uniquely identify elements, preventing incorrect UI reuse during re-renders. Avoid using indexes as keys for dynamic lists to ensure stability. 11th. What is prop drilling? This happens when you pass data through many layers. You can solve this with composition, context, or specialized state libraries, keeping state as close to the usage point as possible. 12th. How does lifting state up work? You move shared state to the nearest common parent and pass it down via props. This ensures a single source of truth and keeps your UI synchronized. Finally, for this section, what is an error boundary? These components catch errors in their subtree, allowing you to display a fallback UI instead of crashing the entire application. They are essential for protecting critical features. Moving on to performance. How do you optimize React app performance? Key strategies include using React.memo for pure components, stabilizing props with useMemo or useCallback, virtualizing large lists, and implementing code splitting for heavy routes. Always measure impact using the React profiler. What causes unnecessary re-renders and how do you debug them? Often, parent re-renders propagate to children by default, or new object references trigger re-renders. Context changes also impact all consumers. Use tools like the React DevTools profiler and the Why Did You Render library to track down these culprits. Question 16. How do suspense and React.lazy work? React.lazy allows for dynamic component imports, which enables code splitting. Suspense wraps these components to display a loading fallback while the chunk loads. It is best used at the route level and should be paired with error boundaries for robust UX. Question 17. Compare SSR, CSR, and SSG. CSR renders in the browser after JS loads. SSR renders on the server per request for better SEO and faster time to first byte. SSG pre-renders at build time for static content. Modern frameworks like Next.js often combine all three strategies based on specific page needs. Next, what is hydration and why do mismatches occur? Hydration attaches event handlers to existing server-rendered HTML. Mismatches happen when the server and client markup diverge, often due to date, random values, or client width differences, which can break interactivity. Aim for deterministic rendering across environments. Question 19. What are custom hooks? Custom hooks are a pattern to encapsulate and reuse stateful logic across components. Always use the use prefix to ensure proper linting. Keep them focused on single responsibilities to ensure they remain composable and free from hidden side effects. How do you handle API calls in React? Use effect hooks for lifecycle management while carefully tracking loading, success, and error states. It is critical to cancel stale requests to prevent race conditions. For production apps, query libraries like React Query or SWR are the standard for caching and invalidation. Question 21. What is an optimistic UI update? This pattern updates the UI immediately before waiting for the server confirmation, greatly improving perceived performance. It works best for low-failure actions like liking a post or toggling a preference, but requires a robust rollback strategy if the request fails. Next, how do you manage global state? Differentiate between local UI state, global client state, and server state. Use context for lightweight data, libraries like ZooStand or Redux for complex global client state, and dedicated query libraries for handling server state caches. Question 23. Redux Toolkit versus traditional Redux. Redux Toolkit is the modern standard. It drastically reduces boilerplate using slices and immer, simplifies async logic with create async thunk, and includes built-in best practices. Traditional Redux is generally considered too verbose and error-prone for modern applications. 24th. Why use RTK Query or React Query? These libraries automate server state management. They handle caching, background fetching, and deduplication of requests, and provide built-in loading and error states. They significantly reduce the manual effort required to manage cache and effects in a component. Question 25. How do you test React effectively? Focus on the test pyramid, balancing unit, integration, and end-to-end tests. Use React Testing Library to test user behavior rather than implementation details. Avoid mocking child components. Instead, mock network boundaries to simulate real interactions. 26th. How do you improve accessibility? Always prefer semantic HTML and ensure keyboard navigation works as expected. Manage focus correctly, use ARIA labels where necessary, and ensure high color contrast. Supplement this with automated tools like Axe, but prioritize manual testing with screen readers. Question 27. How do you structure a scalable React project? Opt for feature-based modular folder structures. Decouple your UI, logic, and service layers. Create a design system for shared primitives, and enforce strict architecture, linting, and formatting conventions to ensure the team can scale comfortably. Finally, for this set, how do you secure React applications? Always prevent XSS by avoiding dangerous HTML injection, handle authentication tokens securely, and coordinate with the backend for strict content security policies. Remember, front-end security is just one layer. Never rely on it as your only line of defense. Moving on to advanced architecture. Question 29. How do you handle micro front-end architecture with React? The strategy involves splitting your application by domain-owned modules, often using module federation or runtime composition. It requires well-defined contracts for shared routing and design systems, while balancing team autonomy against integration complexity. Our final question: what is your React production readiness checklist? You should ensure performance budgets are set, error monitoring is active, and accessibility standards are met. Always validate your caching strategy, security headers, and have a clear rollback plan. This level of oversight demonstrates mature ownership beyond just coding. Thank you for watching this guide to top React interview questions. We hope these insights help you prepare for your next career step. Don't forget to subscribe to Zito TechVerse for more expert guides on mastering React.